And I now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to thank the Algerian presidency and yourself for convening this briefing on the request of the Russian Federation, Somalia, Sierra Leone, and my own delegation on the plight of children in Gaza. We thank Mr. Tom Fletcher for his briefing, and in particular I would like to thank Ms. Bissam Natil for her testimony of the suffering that the children of Gaza have endured for the past 15 months. Mr. President, Israel's unrelenting and indiscriminate attacks on the civilian population in Gaza for 15 sustained months with one pause cannot be justified by any argument of the provocation that instigated these attacks. International humanitarian law is quite clear, crystal clear, that no matter what the provocation, the forces of a state are prohibited from attacking civilian structures or even structures where there may be civilians that could suffer as a result of these attacks. This principle has to be upheld if we are today and in the future to be able to contain the consequences of wars and conflicts on innocent people. That was the purpose of the Geneva Conventions. And that purpose was set out after the wars that devastated Europe and the world. And today, that purpose must be reinstated as we see the suffering that has been caused by Israel's brutal and indiscriminate war in Gaza. 46,000 people killed, most of them women and children. How can this be justified? Among the tragedies of the Palestinian people, the suffering of the children in Gaza stands out as a black mark on humanity at large. Not only on those who caused the suffering by their bombs and artillery, not only on those who allowed this to happen over 15 months, that this Security Council remained frozen because of the position of certain states. Not only those who continued to supply weapons and ammunition to the attacking forces who were killing children every day, but even all of us. And I'm glad I was not on the Security Council, Mr. President, last year, and that I come on the Council at a time when a ceasefire has been achieved, however fragile. But this deliberate policy of targeting civilians, irrespective of the fact that the majority being killed are children and women, hospitals attacked, schools attacked, children targeted by snipers, what degradation, what moral degradation allows something like that to happen? There are complaints about the 7th of October, but compare that with the devastation that has been visited on the people of Gaza. Does 7th of October justify what has been done to the children of Gaza? Can it ever be justified? Mr. President, we of course have welcomed the ceasefire, and we are grateful to Egypt and Qatar, the United States, for having brokered it. It could have been achieved much earlier, and we understand the new dynamics which seems to have obliged the Prime Minister of Israel finally to accept the ceasefire. And now we must ensure that the ceasefire holds, that the Israeli threats to resume the conflict are held back. We are concerned also about what's happening in the West Bank. Ceasefire in Gaza and escalation simultaneously of violence in the West Bank. The Security Council must take cognizance of what is happening in the West Bank as well. Humanitarian aid, of course, has to be accelerated. We fully share the remarks of Mr. Fletcher on how much aid should go through. There is risk of disease, water scarcity, scarcity of food. All of these requirements must be addressed. All border crossings must be opened, and UNRWA's continued operation must be ensured by the international community and this Security Council. We will need a reconstruction plan to be implemented immediately, because the Palestinian people are being asked to return to their homes, but look at the homes. There are no homes. Everything has been devastated. Where will they go for shelter? Mr. President, finally, we must talk about accountability. Last year, the IDF was finally listed in the Secretary General's report on children and armed conflict. The Security Council's mechanism of children in armed conflict must serve as a vital tool for scrutinizing the IDF's actions and to ensure justice and accountability for the Palestinian children. And it should continue to report objectively and comprehensively on the plight of children affected by Israel's war in Gaza. Mr. President, heinous crimes have been committed in this brutal war, particularly against children, in violation of international humanitarian law, the Geneva Conventions, the Convention on the Right of the Child, the Convention on Genocide. There must be accountability for these crimes. This is essential to restore international legitimacy. We must try to ensure that such brutal slaughter of children never happens again. I thank you.